When you lift a weight, the neural descending pathway, the motor pathway from your brain to your muscles, sends that message to your muscles to lift it. And how much force it produces is based on the sensory feedback of the weight itself. You feel the weight, it's heavy, or your intent of what you're trying to do with the weight. Like maybe you have a medicine ball and you're trying to throw it. You're not really weighing the medicine ball. You know, I'm just trying to chuck this thing as far as I can. Now, this brings up an interesting discussion, because when we lift a really, really heavy weight, we can't just try and chuck the weight. So let's say the weight is, I don't know, we have 500 pounds on the deadlift bar. Well, you can't produce 300 pounds in mere milliseconds against it, because that's not enough to actually move it. 500 plus moves it, right? So then that 300 pounds basically shoots back into you and you kind of get a jarring sensation. That's why people, when they lift really heavy weights, they try and accelerate the bar, or you build force into it smoothly. You'll see someone pull the slack out of a deadlift. You'll see someone drive up out of the bottom of a really heavy squat after having a regulated downfall back into it, right? Very rarely, you can see someone just pull with massive amounts of intent. But when you're trying to lift something heavy, once you do and you feel comfortable enough in the position to produce maximal force, you're going to have a really, really huge motor command coming down a descending pathway to the muscles, maximally recruiting every fiber, both slow and fast, to move the weight. Now let's use a different example. Let's say we have that medicine ball. Now it's like, 5 pounds. When you go and chuck that medicine ball, you're not thinking about slowly accelerating into it, right? Reason why? You can produce well more than 5 pounds basically at any given moment. So you can move that ball really easily. There's no feedback when you pull that ball up that's going to push back down because you're producing 4 pounds, not 5. You'll probably produce 25 pounds or 50 pounds or 80 pounds or 100 pounds of force, well over that which is needed to move it. Makes sense? So when we use really light weights, we can really emphasize that initial burst, that explosiveness to throw the medicine ball as far as you can. When you use really heavy weights, we can't do that explosiveness per se, but we can work on the sheer maximal intensity of that contraction. Now, this affects the motor pathways in 2 different ways. The second one, when we throw the ball in the air, we're having a rapid burst, an explosion of force or signals down to the muscles to produce force as fast as we can. When you lift a really heavy weight, we might not have that initial burst and drive, but once we get the weight going, because it's so heavy, we're trying to use every bit of muscle as we possibly can. So we're recruiting as many fibers as we possibly can. These are obviously complementary, because if we can do something, we won't chuck a medicine ball really far, we want as many fibers as possible and as quickly as possible. So that's why heavy lifting can be complementary to explosive lifting. And a little bit so explosive can be complementary to heavy, assuming that you can recruit some of those fibers fast enough in the time period that's needed to actually move the weight. Let's say you go and lift the bar, you're going to pull as heavy as you can, and you just can't produce any force with any speed at all. Well, maybe the bar will stall out because you just haven't been able to produce enough force as fast as possible, like if you're bench pressing. But the inverse probably helps a little bit more. That is, when you're trying to be maximally strong, you produce all those fibers getting contracted. That's my fibers being activated face. And then you throw that ball up in the air as fast as you can. I guess you try to lift the weight as heavy, so all those fibers are contracting. And that applies to when you try and throw that ball up in the air, the medicine ball chuck. You then have those fibers that you had activated during the really heavy lift. We now work on the speed of activation so we can utilize them in that medicine ball to help us be more powerful and explosive. So naturally, we have 2 areas of emphasis. Light weights can really help with explosiveness for the reason that it allows us to try and chuck the weight or the ball or do whatever we do as fast as we can. And heavy weights really can help with that recruitment pathway, how many fibers we can recruit maximally when we're trying to volitionally move something as heavy as possible. A little bit of science for you all out in the cornfield.